Hi everybody, and welcome to Run Tall with Tim. I'm Tim. Thanks for being here. I always appreciate the time that you and I get to spend together, so thanks for tuning in. And I hope wherever you are, that you're happy, healthy, and staying safe. On today's video, I'm going to be comparing the Hoka Gaviota 3 with the Gaviota 4. The Gaviota is Hoka's max stability shoe, and it's seen a number of changes from version 3 to version 4. But did those changes make the shoe better or worse? Well, that's the question that we're going to try to answer today, so be sure to stick around. But before I get into it too far, I always like to demonstrate what it looks like to run in the shoes I'm about to review for you. So let's do that. But then when we come back together, I'm going to take a real close look at the Hoka Gaviota 3 and the Gaviota 4 to try to answer that all-important question, which shoe is right for you? The Gaviota is a stability road shoe. I ordered mine true to size, and for me that's a US men's size 9, and both of them fit me perfectly. Now the Gaviota 3 comes in a little bit heavier on my scales at 11.4 ounces, while the 4 come in at 11.1 ounces. I did purchase both of these with my own money. Now the Gaviota 3 retails for $160 US, while the Gaviota 4 did see a slight increase in price. They come in at $170 US, although because the newest version of the shoe was just released, you can find the Gaviota 3 on sale right now for less than $130. If you're new here, welcome to the Run Tall family. I'm really glad you're here and we found us on YouTube. Now I post running shoe reviews, comparisons, and shoe battles weekly, but I also like to post a lot of other videos related to running as well. So if you enjoy watching running shoe reviews and other videos about running, be sure to subscribe to the channel and don't forget to click the notification bell so you'll be notified each time that I upload new content. Now on paper, these shoes look pretty much identical in terms of their stats. With the spring measurement, which is how high your heel sits off the ground, they have 36 millimeters. And then in the forefoot, they have 20 millimeters. They both have a 5 millimeter drop from the heel to the toe. Although it is worth mentioning that the women's version is slightly different. Now they feature a 32 millimeter stack height in the heel, or how high your heel sits off the ground, and 18 in the forefoot. But they still have a 5 millimeter drop from the heel to the toe. And with both the Gaviota 3 and the 4, they both have the same amount of volume as reported on Hoka's website, which is 731 cubic centimeters. So why are these shoes so different to run in? Because there is a huge difference. Well, with the Gaviota 3, they're just a much stiffer ride. And they had to have done something different with that EVA midsole material, because with the Gaviota 3, it's not a very cushioned shoe. And they even changed it on their website. With the Gaviota 3, they have it listed as a balanced ride, meaning that it's a little bit harder. It's not nearly as cushioned. While the Gaviota 4, they changed to a more plush ride. And I have to agree with that, absolutely 100%. I find it somewhat difficult at times to run in the Gaviota 3 because there just isn't that much cushion. You feel it when you strike the ground. They're a pretty stiff shoe, as I said. So they don't feel all that natural. There's not a lot of give as I try to push on the heel and the toe. You can see that there's really not any flex there. And while they both feature a late stage meta rocker, so start the curvature much past or a little past your metatarsal head, they're just very different. With the Gaviota 4, it's a much more natural feeling. There's a lot more flex. You can see that I don't have to push on it nearly as hard to get that toe to flex up like that. And it's just a softer ride and a much more natural feeling because you have a little bit more flex or give up in the toe. When I strike the ground and move through my gait cycle, they do feel a lot more natural to me and a much more enjoyable ride in terms of the midsole. And they both feature the J frame, so they didn't change how they're creating a stable ride for you. They both have a 2 foam system, so they have a softer EVA foam and then a bit more dense foam. And that more dense foam is in the shape of a J back here. So if I turn it on the side, I think you might be able to make that out in the camera view, but basically you have a softer midsole EVA foam here, but then it gets much more dense back in your heel area, so much so that, you know, it's difficult to compress it with my thumbs, and that didn't change. That's the same method that they used in the Gaviota 3. So again, softer midsole material here, much more stiff or rigid back in the heel. And that's to correct your pronation. So as you strike the ground, you don't overly roll inward. So it slows that roll, so to speak, and puts you in a much more healthy pronation. And I have to say, both shoes do a good job of that. It's just the Gaviota 4 is a much more comfortable ride. And for that reason, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a spoiler alert, I much prefer the Gaviota 4 to run in than I do the Gaviota 3. So let's flip these over and we'll take a look at the outsole, see how they're protecting the midsole material. And with the Gaviota 3, here you can see that they have rubber in all of the high abrasion areas where you're likely to see wear first. They're around in that J frame that they have back here, and then from the midfoot up through to where your toe off. And they didn't make any changes. From the 3 to the 4 version, you can see that they have rubber in exactly the same positioning, which I think is a really good move on Hoka's part. There's no need to change the position of that outsole material. From the 2 to the 3, they made some changes, and they were really positive changes. And you can see the differences here, where they added some outsole rubber material right down the center section of the shoe. And I was really pleased when they did that, because this, with the Gaviota 2, you can see that there is a lot of wear that took place right in the center of the shoe especially. And I've got a couple hundred miles on these, I think, somewhere in that neighborhood, and over 1,000 miles on my original version of the Gaviota 2. So the Gaviota and I do have somewhat of an extensive history together. But I think that when they changed from the 2 to the 3, they did a great job, and I think they did an even better job by not making any changes from the 3 to the 4, because I think they got it just about perfect. Both shoes feature an engineered mesh upper, but they're very different. So they did make some significant changes here as well. With the Gaviota 3, I didn't find these to be all that breathable. They're still comfortable to wear. They're just not as comfortable. I think that the material feels a little bit more coarse to the touch. As we look at the toe box, we can see that, you know, they have these long slits here for perforations, but I just never felt like I was getting a lot of airflow to keep my feet cool or comfortable when I was running. The fit is fine. It's a snug fit, much more snug than the Gaviota 2 was. And so it's a bit more narrow. So if you were used to the Gaviota 2 and you switched up to the Gaviota 3 because you thought you were upgrading, you might have noticed that right away. So much so I remember when I first put these on my feet, I thought that they gave me the wrong size, because I took them out of the box. I was excited to put them on my feet, laced them up, and I thought, woo, in fact, I even double checked to make sure that they sent me the right size, because they just felt that much more snug, especially across the midfoot section. But no, they did send me the right size. It's just that they had changed the fit of these to be a more snug feeling to them. You know, and that works well, I think, for stability shoes to give you a little bit more of a stable feeling. But for those of us who might have wider feet, I don't necessarily. But I have heard, and when I posted this video, from people who do have a wider foot, that these didn't work for them because of that reason. So just something to keep in mind. But then as we work our way around to the side of the shoe, you can see not a whole lot going on, not a lot of perforations. Really, the only thing they have back over here as an overlay is their Hoka logo, as we can see. Now, as we take a look at the Gaviota 4, again, engineered mesh material, but they did change it. This is much softer to the touch, at least in my opinion anyway. It feels a little bit cooler underfoot. Now, the perforations, they did change the direction on the Gaviota 3. They were run side to side. Here, they're running up and down this way. And I do feel like this is a cooler shoe to wear underfoot. And so the upper for me is a much more comfortable. I do get still a snug feeling across the midfoot section, but they don't feel as snug, especially up around in the toe box. And just like with the Gaviota 3, as we work our way around to the side into the back of the shoe, not a lot going on there. They've got their Hoka logo again there at the back as a plastic overlay. Still not a ton of perforations here in the Gaviota 4 either, but I still feel like these run a little cooler. Now, the lace enclosure system is also seeing some significant changes or updates to it. With the Gaviota 3, They maintain the system that they'd used in the past with a slight variations of it, but basically they have what I would refer to this as a banded system. So you can see that there's two different layers of material here. They have two different pass-through eyelets, one that's directly sewed into the outside of the upper, and then another that rests on the inside of your foot. Now that's a separate piece of material that runs down to the midsole where it's sewed in. So as you cinch up your laces, it draws that band in around your midfoot to lock you in and keep you nice, tight, and secure. And it does a really good job at that. The downside is it makes the upper run a little bit hot because you have a couple different layers of material there. And then when the Gaviota 4 with the update, they did away with that H-style system or that banded system that they used as a lace enclosure, and they went to a much more traditional eyelet chain here. So no big wow factor, but it gets the job done, and I prefer this over the Gaviota 3. Now they also changed the tongue as well. The Gaviota 3 features lots of padding in the tongue, and it's a fully gusseted tongue. So there's gussets on both sides. So this thing is not moving around at all. And I never had any issues with that. Never had any problems with the laces cutting across the top of my foot. It's always felt really comfortable. But Hoka saw fit to make some changes. They added some padding to the tongue. I'm not sure that they needed to do that. This is the one change that maybe I might not have made. Okay, but still, lots of padding there. It feels like it's even more padding in that tongue area. And then strangely enough, they only gusseted one side. So you can see there's no gusset on this side, and yet there's a little bit of a gusset there. But either way, the tongue didn't move around. It still remained very comfortable. I just think that they maybe added some additional weight here that they didn't need to add. Maybe it balances out because, you know, they added some additional padding in the tongue, but they only put one gusset on there. So maybe the little bit of less gusset material kind of balances out the weight that it might have added. But either way, I think they could have left a fully gusseted tongue here and just left the amount of padding that they had in the Gaviota 3. And I would have been fine with that. Now both versions have a lot of padding around the heel collar and the tab. They're both really comfortable to run in. I didn't have any hot spots that way, and I found that my Achilles felt really comfortable in each of these. And there's a lot of structure in the heel. They are stability shoes, so you would expect to find that. But as I give it the pinch test, when I do this on both shoes, they're pretty much equivalent to one another. It creates a nice solid heel pocket for your heel to set in. I didn't have any slippage either up or down or side to side in either shoe. The one change that they did make back towards the heel is in the pull tab. And you can see that they have a big wide pull tab on the Gaviota 3, and they shrunk that up a little bit and went more with a rope style pull tab back in the heel collar. Both work, they both function just fine, although I guess I do kind of prefer the change that they made to the Gaviota 4. I think it looks a little nicer, and it's a little easier for me to grab a hold of it to help me pull my shoes on. Overall, I think Hoka did a really good job in making the changes from the Gaviota 3 to the Gaviota 4. The Gaviota 3 for me is just a difficult shoe to run in because it's not very cushioned. Hoka's always called this their max cushion, max stability shoe, but they dropped the ball a little bit with the Gaviota 3. It's just a much stiffer shoe and a much more firm ride. The Gaviota 4, they're going back somewhat to their roots. It's a more flexible shoe to run in, much more cushioned and much more natural feeling underfoot. So the big question is it worth the extra $40? Because right now you can pick up the Gaviota 3 for about a little less than $130, and the Gaviota 4 is going for $170. Well, in my opinion, it absolutely is worth it because the Gaviota 3 isn't a shoe that I really enjoy running in at all. It's not my favorite shoe to pick up. But the Gaviota 4 works good for me. I severely overpronate, and I like to take these out on a recovery run, for example. They're a good shoe to do that. They're plenty soft, and they're going to keep me in a healthy level of pronation. Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed making it for you. As always, run tall, run strong, be kind to one another. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on Run Tall with Tim.